guys, welcome back to the channel. So there's been a few things going on in the background this morning, and I think this does pretty much deserved a video. Folks, if my voice sounds a little bit off, a little bit funny, it's just simply because I'm going through a whole stage of reconstruction of my mouth due to the boat accident and stuff like that. But we're going to get through it. That's the important thing. I'm probably just going to sound like I've got braces on. Hopefully that explains that. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Those things are so important. Drop a comment. Let me know what you're doing this weekend. Let me know what you're sipping on. If you're sipping a tea, if you're drinking a coffee, whatever. I want to know. So like I was saying, there's been some real interesting stuff going on in the background. So what we're looking at here is what I believe, and from what we know here on the channel, to be a Crypto.com wallet. And this is a CEX wallet. It handles transactions. So a lot of these transactions will always be tied to memos. So when something has a memo tied to it, you know this is a user. Once that happens, funds go into what I call a mixer. You can call it a bridge wallet. You can call it whatever you want. But ultimately, it reaches a point where it hits the memo system and the memo swallows it. It's as bad as Tornado Cash for all intents and purposes. The only people who could really figure that out would be Crypto.com. Now, what we're looking at here is 3 transactions, okay? And he was worth 3 failed transactions. So if we get each one of these transactions up and we take a look, we can see that each one failed just because of gas. They just didn't have enough gas to send the amount they wanted to send, which was a considerable amount. It's 26 billion LUNC. So not only did that fail once, twice, but actually 3 times. What I think is someone's going to be losing their job at Crypto.com in the following hours because this is quite substantial. Now, why is this good for us? Well, some people are saying it's due to the slashing, but it's not. It's actually from these 3 failed transactions. The system is built in a manner that taxes, and a lot of people are very heavily focused on this idea, right, of burning through loads of coins. We just burnt a substantial amount of coins from somebody's mistake. Okay? Something to understand is if we've introduced a tax, right? What do you then do? Well, then you go and build. You introduce reasons for money to move. It's really quite simple. If we introduce the use cases, the money will move around and the tax will do what it needs to do. We're going to get there one day and we're going to understand this really well as a community, and then we're all going to move forward as a collective, kind of like how SHIB went through a really strong growing phase, and now they're one, they're all together and they're moving forward. So like I was saying, this is quite substantial. So the 4th time they put this through, it did go through, but you can see it's a considerable amount less, and that's just because every time that failed, and then when it eventually went through, it was a lot of gas. It was just a lot of gas, and someone has gone and then made another transaction, which has then failed. So whatever this is, it seems to be that it's all to do with the CX itself, because if we look at the transaction, there is no memo. Okay, so either put yourself in the shoes of this transaction. You've just made this transaction yourself and you forgot to put a memo on it. What have you just done? Yeah, that's a real big mess up, right? So I don't think this is a user. If I was sending even close to 100 million LUNC, I would double, triple, quadruple check the memo and ensure that the address, everything was correct. I'd probably do a test transaction to ensure that it was correct and it got to where it needed to get to. That's the depth you go to with transactions of substantiality like this. Now, with this substantial amount, it's clear that something's going on Crypto.com and they're moving LUNC around. What could this possibly mean? Well, it could mean quite a lot of different things. They might be sending it to stake, right? At some point that could show up in a transaction on chain. We just don't know at this point. What we do know is we've profited from this in a manner where you've seen a substantial burn. And if people want to see these kind of burns keep going on and on and on, all we need to do is introduce use cases, utility, and reasons for people to move their coins. They don't even need to be spending them. Just moving them to, I don't know, an LSD or something like that. It can come down to very simple use cases like that, even on ramps, off ramps. Everything's going to get taxed. Okay, and that was the point of having a tax system in place. If you're in charge of a city, you don't tax everybody and then just hope for the best. Hope that because you've raised taxes, everybody's paying more, that everything's just magically going to go up. It doesn't. You've got to build your city out. You've got to build the infrastructure. You've got to put schools in place, hospitals. You know, I'm not one of those sort of people, but it's quite obvious at this point that building and taking the long road is really what is going to push this coin to where it needs to get to, because transactions like this, if they're moving substantial amounts of coins, it can realistically only be good for us because they're coins that have moved. They've created a liquidity cycle. There's been gas fees paid. And the even better thing about this, I'll need to refresh because we've actually had a power cut here this morning, which was absolutely insane. I'm going to be doing a video later today. I've been saying this for a while, but I am going to get a video up specifically targeting the Moonrunners metric system, because I think this is the best one that's currently available. The community pool got a small amount from that. I think around, I don't know, maybe about 50 million LUNC, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I haven't really done the numbers, but it's gone up a little bit. And for all intent and purposes, this is good. This is what we need. And if this stuff keeps happening and people keep seeing reasons to move money, reasons to do things, you're going to see different pools prosper from that. Even down to the Oracle pool will get something from it. What we want to see, right, instead of just seeing every quarter the pools get emptied, the Oracle rewards pool consistently in a downtrend, we want to see this stop. We want to see everything all of a sudden go, oh, and then start going back upwards. You want to see the Oracle rewards pool gaining more than it's paying out. You want to see the community pool really strong. You want it so you've got, you know, billions of LUNC available, readily available to develop anything that seems worth chasing, because everything is at the drop of a hat in crypto and you just don't know what you're going to need and when you're going to need funding. No one thought that Luna would crash, yet they woke up the next morning, and people who were millionaires the night before went to sleep, woke up, and their lives were ruined. So if anybody thinks we're invulnerable to things like this, we're simply not, and it just doesn't work like that. But with this transaction, it was substantial, and I do think someone's going to be losing their job over this, but I don't think this is a user. I really, really don't think this is a user, for the specific reason that there's no memo with it. And there should be a memo. It's clearly an internal transaction that's going on. Because if you look at the smaller sort of ones that haven't been so substantial over the past 6-7 hours, you'll see that each one of these do have a memo. This is a handler wallet. For all intent and purposes, it's the Binance hot wallet, but it's crypto.com's hot wallet instead. So hot wallets require memos, right? Exactly. So it has to be an internal source. This has to be internally done. It's really interesting to look at. There's something I've been thinking about recently, and it's kind of like we need to clean the network up. We've got all these junk coins that are absolutely no use to our system anymore. They played a very different role. They were supposed to be stable coins for each major country you would travel to and want to utilize the native currency for the crypto in that country via Terra. It's part of an old system, and it's sort of there, and it doesn't do anything. If anything, it costs users pointless amounts of fees for those who do the multiple swap system. Maybe they're not as well invested in it, and they're not getting the substantiality of rewards that you would be getting. So therefore, say they're getting, I don't know, 2,000 LUNC a month in rewards because they've got a very small bag. Maybe they do the multiple swap thinking, oh, I'm getting for this because I'm swapping all of these coins, not looking at the bottom because it's a huge list, just putting the password in, simply saying yes, and not realizing that they're actually ending up with less rewards. And I know that doesn't seem that bad, but when you multiply that on a grand scale, it's actually really bad, because everything comes out in the wash, right? Everything that everybody's done on this chain, you will be held accountable for it when the time comes. And it's kind of like the Terraport situation. I honestly believe at some point there will be legal teams, and they'll go through the history and they'll be tracking people down, and it will be kind of like the huge PP, whatever it, the whole systems that we've gone through here with in the UK, it's been whiplash claims, the banking PPE claims, all of those different things that happened years and years and years ago. They find a legal loophole and then boom, they can hold everybody accountable at that point. So it's one of those ones. It's all interesting stuff. This has got my brain thinking a lot about what's going on, because no one moves 26 billion coins for fun, especially not an internal transaction. It doesn't look like, for me, and this is my own personal opinion, it doesn't look like this was a user. It doesn't look like they messed up. These wallets both correlate to crypto.com stuff. We know this because we've been in the game a long time. I originally started chasing money on Terra Finder, BitQuery, and doing all of that stuff, but it ends up as you hit these mixer wallets and it disappears. This is a little bit different because it's an internal transaction. We can track it to a certain extent. I'm going to spend the next couple of hours tracking this down, seeing where it's gone and seeing where it possibly could end up. I'll get an update video out there for everybody and I'll go over my findings. Other than that, folks, keep an eye out for that other video coming today. We'll get a video up on Moon Runners. Other than that, stay safe, stay humble, stay aware, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.